Okay. So today I'm going to be talking about leadership. Now, leadership has been the most researched subject in management. Okay, so people have been talking about leadership right from about 1950. We've had studies that occurred in 1930s too, but the bulk of the research, like all parts of management, started post World War II. Because what happened is that when the soldiers came back, a lot of them joined the industry in various capacities, and they transferred the learnings that they had in dealing with various things during the war to the industry. And there was obviously research done to see if we can improve on such certain things. Okay, so leadership happens to be one of the most uh, research topic, and so today we'll talk about some of the aspects of leadership. Okay, now leadership is about half of it is intellect, half of it is emotion. So how many of you actually manage teams? It could be two or it could be many. How many of you manage teams? Any of you manage teams? Okay, how big is your team? Okay, and yours? 10 people. Okay, where do you work? Okay, what's that? Okay. Okay. Um, okay. Okay, fine. So let me ask you, what do you think is the biggest problem that you have with the team? Biggest challenge? I'm only asking you because the others didn't raise their hands. So others said, even though I'm a leader, I'll not raise my hand. I'm not going to tell people I'm a leader. Get into trouble. So since both of you did, biggest challenge. Okay. Okay. You okay? And what would? Yes. Uh, so thank you for your inputs. I can assure you, leadership is messy. Okay, it is not something that can be neatly planned, put into tables, charts. You're dealing with human beings that come with emotions, and those emotions are messy. So every leader has a challenge, and every leader has a full-time job. Just managing people is a full-time job. It comes with a lot of challenges. So that being said, it is also the exciting part of that. Otherwise, how long will you be an individual contributor, remain in your silo? So it is only when you are able to deal with people that you become a full-fledged leader. So it shapes your personality. When you become a leader, you become a more rounded human beings, because then uh, you're dealing with people who sometimes don't want to listen to you, or they say that do sometimes they say yes, yes, we'll do it, and then they don't bother. They always do that. So the others are giving guilty looks, saying, yeah, manager, we also do that. But leadership, whether you are in the army, whether in an educational institution like this, or you are in a corporate world, leadership is about emotion, dealing with emotions and human beings. So it's always tricky. It's not always easy to do that. So we'll look at how it actually came up. Okay. Okay. So we'll discuss this. Okay. Now, since that side answered, let me ask these two sides. What do you think? Give me a simple definition of leadership. The textbook definition is there. Give me a simple definition of either who you think a leader is, or what do you think leadership is. Either of them is fine. Your definition. Easy question. Come. Okay, one who motivates. Okay. Okay. Okay, he's a figurehead for the team. He's usually a little more than just being a figurehead. You don't have a good opinion about your leader, you know. Okay. Okay. So all these, so you all agree that this is what a leader does. A leader has a group or team that is there with him, and he has to get a certain objective done from that group of people, and hopefully they will all listen to him and they'll agree to do that. So that is what is a leader's role. So our definition is to influence a group towards achievement of a vision or a set of goals. Basically the same thing. Complicated English to say the same thing. That finally it is a leader's job to achieve an objective. And incorporate the objectives are usually numerical. Okay, so you have a certain deadline to be met, a certain productivity to be had, certain, so many $1 million target to be met. So it's usually numerical that the leader has to. So in addition to that, the leader has human goals. Okay, so let's ask the two leaders here. Do you have human growth of people? Uh, do you have that in your KRAs in addition to the task? I'm sure you have the numerical goals that you need to achieve so much, or if you're in software, get a certain satisfaction score, or to deliver a software in this time frame, in this budget. You have these things. In addition to that are the human things: grow the team, recruit new people, train new people, uh, you know get people promoted. Do you have goals like that? Okay. Okay, what are some of the goals you have? Talent development. Okay, in that, training, coaching. Okay, all that. Learning goals. Okay. Okay, that the leader has to show, or the team? Okay. Okay, so all these are a leader's role. So, and as the leader becomes, as you start moving from whatever has been the role now to a more strategic role, hopefully one day all of you will become CEOs, COOs. And when that happens, large amount of your time will be spent managing people. Maybe about 80% of the time will go in managing people. 20% will be, strategy and the rest of it. The higher you go, all you have to do is to manage people, because that is where the complexity is. You have smart people who can do what you want them to do. The point is to get them on your side, to agree on that, and to ensure it happens. That is what CEOs do. So it largely is about, so you look at any CEO, that is what these people do. And what happens is, some of the CEOs, what they have done is that uh, they didn't start off with the skills of leadership, but they developed it as we go along. We will look at what the theory says. Okay, as they went along, they developed this theory, and today they are successful leaders because of that. So let me give you two examples. Now, any of you worked in Infosys? Okay, no, no, okay, no. Oh, but all of you know Narayan Murthy, right? No, Narayan Murthy is not our typical leader type, right? If you look at him, you don't think, hey, leader. For all his formidable achievements, he doesn't look. So he is not a natural leader. He's not a person who says, come, I'll lead you. But he learned it over a period of time. And it is not easy to build an organization and say we will have integrity as a core value and we'll implement that. Not easy at all. It is really, really difficult to do that. So build a successful organization, you get that goals, and to build in such. So these people have learned that. The other example is, all of you know Mark Zuckerberg, right? Okay, now you might have seen some of the videos of Mark Zuckerberg in recent times where he's addressed town halls in Facebook, or he's appeared before the Senate committee and he has defended certain things on Facebook. He is a lot more confident today. But if you look at the first interview he gave on TV, so what happens is wearing a suit. and he's sweating. So it is not just a little sweat here. There are beads of sweat. So after some time, he removes his coat because it got uncomfortable. Then he loosened his tie. Really uncomfortable answering questions. Really uncomfortable. Today, he's able to deal with people. He's able to deal with governments. So leadership is not always something that people are born with. In fact, the corporate philosophy has always been that leaders are made. Leaders can be trained. Yes, there are certain born leaders who show leadership skills, who can use these lessons and become better. But most leaders are people who have become that. So let me give you an Indian example. Now, all of you know Ratan Tata, right? Okay, now what happened is uh, Ratan Tata became the chairman of the Tata Sons, the holding company of the Tatas. And each of the Tata companies was headed by a very powerful CEO. You had people like um, Rusi Modi. I don't know if some of you have heard of Rusi Modi, a lot of guys. All these guys had about 30, 40 years of experience. And you had this person coming in, and they said, who's this guy to tell us how to do things? We are better. We have grown the company, and they've all been very successful. So they didn't want to listen to him. So his biggest challenge was, how do you get these people to listen to him? You can give people any designation in the world, but that does not make them a leader. And you can see examples of that in every corporate. That somebody has got a designation, but their people, that team's people don't listen to that person. This poor leader is trying very hard to get them to do things, and these people say, no, we'll not cooperate. Does that happen in companies? Why? Somebody got the designation of a leader, but then what happened? The team didn't accept this leader. Ratan Tata was not accepted by a leader, and to add to him to the problems, um, Tata Motors had the first ever strike. They had a 9 month lockdown, so this young leader had to grapple with a lot of very serious problems. But he successfully maneuvered that, and today I don't think there's any doubt about his leadership or thing. I don't think there's uh, anybody in Tata's who say I'll not listen to him. But that was how it was when he started off. Even though your own uncle is give you the biggest industrial group in the country and say, okay, become a CEO, leadership doesn't come easily. It doesn't come naturally. People don't listen to you. And they don't listen to you for precisely the reason that it was your uncle who gave you the company. You're not qualified. He's a qualified engineer, but they said, you've not built the company. We have built the company. Why should we listen to you? You don't know anything about steel. You don't know anything about trucks. So it took some time for people to actually listen. So leadership is not automatic. You get a designation doesn't automatically make you a leader. And how many of you think you will become managers, leaders in the next 3 to 5 years? All of you will. Okay, so remember this, that leadership is not automatic. They can give you a designation. Anybody can get a designation. Okay, and then I can call you Maharaja of whatever department you're doing. The other people say, no, we don't listen to you. Sorry. So that is of course one of the fundamental things about leadership that you must know about, is that any leader, it does not come automatically. It is something that you can't simply take for granted, and that I have become a leader, now everybody will listen to me. They will not. So we'll look at some of the, what does the theory say to help you make this journey. That Okay, so what we'll do is, now we'll do an activity. Okay, now all of you will tell me your favorite leader. As far as possible, try to pick non-political leaders. It is not to say that there is no leadership, but sometimes this creates controversy. If you can't, you say, no, that is my favorite leader, I'll accept it. And you tell me one quality about that leader that you think makes that person a very successful leader. Okay, so it could be anyone. Hopefully there'll be a I'm sorry, there are no markers. Okay. Yeah. So we'll start with here. Yeah. So you tell me your favorite leader and one quality about your favorite leader. Okay. 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 So, but give me one quality that you think is good about Ratan Tata. Okay. Okay. Fine. Okay. Fine. Please. Yes, ma'am. There's so many leaders. So don't tell me I don't know any leader. Okay. But why do you like? Okay. Yeah. Okay. 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 I'm okay. 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 But you tell me why you think he's a good leader. Okay. Yeah. Okay. But yeah. Okay. 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 Yeah, true. And leaders, headmistress of school is a leader. Okay. So, okay. Okay. Yeah, please go ahead. No, no, tell me two. No, no, no problem. Okay. 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 Fine. Okay. Okay. But you tell me one quality that you liked about Nelson Mandela. Okay. Yeah. Now, what you did was what was the first method of okay online? Any answers?
Yes, sir.
Haven't got it.
Yeah, this is Vikas Sharma,
I've
sir.
got one chat message again. MS Dhoni. Okay. Staying calm and being a team player is what Darshan says. Anybody else answer?
Yes, sir. APJ Abdul Kalam.
Okay, but why do you like him?
because he took the initiative to make changes in our aerospace scenario what we were having earlier, and he make that step to make on a next level. And even though the quality what I liked, he mostly interact with the school students, and to conclude what their questions, they just do the answer of their particular question. So
Okay, okay, okay. So some common answers: MS Dhoni, Ratan Tata, uh, Abdul Kalam. See, they're all phenomenal leaders, no doubt about their leadership abilities. Okay. Now, the first thing that people did is that saying that let's find out qualities of successful leaders. And when I know all the qualities that a successful leader, I'll go find that quality in other people in my company. And because that person has the same quality, that person will also become a successful leader. Okay, sounds very familiar. Isn't that what interview process is? But this theory didn't really work very well. And it didn't work very well because there were just too many different qualities, like all of you have come. It is very difficult to pinpoint that one important quality that makes MS Dhoni a very successful captain, because then all BCCI has to do is to find that quality in all the cricket players that you have in the country, and you'll find the next Indian cricket captain. It doesn't work that way. He and Virat Kohli have very, very different styles of leadership, but Virat Kohli is a successful leader too. So which one should I follow? Should I then say MS Dhoni's traits are important, or should I say Virat Kohli traits are important? There is no answer for that. Yeah, that's exactly. No, but his results are as good as Dhoni's, right? Yeah, it is. Okay, we'll talk about this. We're not getting that. We're not getting into this discussion. Okay, now the fact is, though, let us look at it from the point of view of a corporate. Okay, and um, does somebody know who succeeded Steve Jobs at Apple? Who became the CEO after Steve Jobs died?
Tim Cook.
Tim Cook. Yes, Tim Cook became the CEO. And Tim Cook is a very, very different leader. Steve Jobs is in your face, aggressive leader, pushy leader. Tim Cook is a more urbane, more a consensus builder, more a people manager. So you have distinct styles. Even in Apple, they didn't say that, okay, Steve Jobs is gone, let's bring another Steve Jobs. They say we'll find the best man for the job. And so that is the problem with trait theory, that if you look at any situation, you can't say that I will bring a clone of that person and that person will be successful, which is what the entire thing was. So to give you an extreme example, I am not endorsing any policies, but at around the same time in history, you had Hitler and you had Mahatma Gandhi, both hugely successful leaders. I'm only talking about the leadership styles. I'm not going into their politics, right or wrong. They've been very, very successful people. And yet their traits are so different. So which one should I follow? That was what the problem that happened with the trait theory. That the traits are so many, and the traits were very, some of the traits that were there had something to do with race, color. Okay, so there were traits regarding that too. For example, um, in American politics, they follow something called a WASP-M method. WASP is white Anglo-Saxon Protestant, male. So if you want to get into politics, they said you should be a WASP-M. Otherwise, you will never become a president of the US, because this is a qualities. So how ridiculous. And you have in recent times, probably the best president they've ever had is a person who's a black and who was a tremendous president. So you really, in trade, what happens is that you don't really have a list of qualities that you can say. Let me just mute people. Yeah, those of us who have had small children, we know the problems. So my sympathies to that person. I'm not irritated. I know the. So what happened with the trait theory is it becomes very difficult for you to say these are the 3-4 traits, and you pick somebody with these traits, and that person is definitely going to be a successful leader. It has never worked. It has never worked. And if you look at, if you're looking at, to give you the Tata example again, JRD Tata was a more pushy leader. He had the power of his personality. Ratan Tata is more on the introvert side. So he doesn't connect with people naturally. That's not his strength. So they didn't say that let's remove one and bring in another person. And the president chairman too is not a person whose skills are people management, but he brings formidable skills of strategy and understanding corporate dynamics. So the point is, which is more important? And trade theory has never answered. So what has happened is that if you look at every company, uh, you find that you have a wide variety of leaders, because a lot of them are successful, but you can't say that this is better than another, because in one situation, in one type of team, some people are more effective and some people are less effective. So in the interview process, when you are asking questions about a lot of things, uh, what exactly happens in the interview process? You ask people questions, and then what happens? How is the decision made? We have, or you're basically asking yourself, do we like this person? So it's an emotional decision that you take. A reaction to a leader is always emotional. So if a leader can ensure that you have a positive emotional relation, the your relation will be good. That is what most leaders who are successful have been able to get. Okay, so to give you again an example, Mahatma Gandhi. Why do you think Mahatma Gandhi chose salt and salt satyagraha? There were other problems too. He could have chosen that, but he specifically chose salt. You understand Dandi March, right? You've heard of Dandi March, and it was a salt satyagraha. They were protesting against tax on salt. Why did he choose that? Actually, the tax was not too much. And it really was not what history writes about it, that backbreaking tax on common people. It was not that. It's not that. That's a little bit of embellishment of facts. But then why did Mahatma Gandhi choose salt? He could have chosen something else. He could have said, let's go on a march and say, down, down British. But he chose salt satyagraha. Why did he choose salt? Any guesses? You can guess. In OT, you can guess as much as you want. No problems. Why do you think he chose salt? It is essential and which every human being understands and has an emotional connect. So he made that a big issue. He said, you know what? Something that everyone needs, common thing, they're putting tax on that. Yeah, bad. Yeah. Come, let's go on March. Yeah, come. That's leadership. So leaders pick the right issues. There needs to be emotional connect. There needs to be a high level of emotional connect rather than just about managing. So lots of times in IT, especially, I find that a lot of people are very good intellectually and they like dealing with the team at an intellectual level, works for some extent, but it is not as effective as when you get into an emotional attachment with the team. So because that is when um, what happened when I joined Kotak. I didn't have too much of experience at that time. I took over the company, and suddenly all hell broke loose. They were just waiting for me to join, and they were all very nice in the induction. They all shook hands and said, "Yeah, we're expecting a lot." And I went back, and they said that the loans had the outstanding was beyond norms. They said, "Close all lending and go and collect money." And we were not able to collect money. I had a very young team. They were untrained, so we had a problem on that front. And at that point, the government of Andhra Pradesh, where I was the leader, they believed that we owned them 100 crores. So I was slapped with a 100 crore fine. So I think at that time our turnover used to be about 500 crores as a company. So there's no way we could pay 100 crores. It was the most ridiculous demand. The fact is that I think the team could have ignored me, but they felt that this person needs help at that time and they rallied behind me for reasons I was a new leader. I had not even made contact, but the team said, hey, at this time, this person needs help, and they rallied and they helped me out. One of my best leadership stints, because we went through so many problems together, that there was this amount of emotional comfort with each other, saying, yeah, we have seen it all and we have weathered it and we will weather the other. We trusted each other, and we know that if there is, okay, you're a little lazy guy, but when there's a problem, you will support me and you'll ensure it is solved. So that sort of comfort comes only at an emotional level, not at a, it was a finance, it was a team with a lot of financial brain. So very analytical team, but I think the team worked together because of these emotional problems that we had. We had a sales stack raid. We had 4 sales stacks raid. Then we had a service stack audit. So we've gone through everybody. Um, we got harassed by every government inspector who can. We had a labor audit. So we had all that. But I think the team came together because of the problems. So sometimes in adversity, you have good teamwork coming in. Sometimes there's no golden rules in management, but sometimes you have this coming through. That is what trade theory. So coming back to the trade theory is still very much in use, but has not been backed by any data. No research has ever found that trade theory has any basis. So we'll look at some of the other theories. We'll also look a little more about now. Some things that people have found has a bearing between leadership and what is successful leadership and some of the traits. One trait is extroversion. You don't have to be a come let's party type of guy. You understand extroversion, right? Ease of mixing with people, making friends, building relationships. That is extroversion. Now, if you're not a natural extrovert, but you're a person who can speak your mind clearly without offending people, then that is a leadership. It is called assertive communication. You've heard of this phrase called assertive communication? Okay. Assertive communication is in between two extreme forms of communication. On one side, you have aggression, where you shout at people, or you have submission, where you agree to everything they have. Assertive communication is right in the middle, where you say that, um, can I make my point without offending the other person, but getting that person to listen to? So if you can do that as a leader, then that is a trait that will work very well. So some amount of extroversion. Now, people who are very disciplined, keep up commitments, are very methodical, they have been found to be good leaders. And these are some of the traits. Is there a sure short way? Does it mean that somebody who's not methodical will never become a leader? No. If you are naturally that, it helps you. If you are a person who engages with people naturally, helps you. But there is no fast rule, hard and fast rule that you cannot become an effective manager. In fact, the latest theory is that anybody can be trained to become an effective manager. And the same thing happens in corporates. Virtually from the pool of people, some people do well and they are therefore picked into leadership position. And that's the model we've been following, found to be very successful. So one good thing about leadership is, we'll talk a little about this, that have you heard of IQ? Okay, what is IQ? Okay, and what does it measure? Has anybody taken an IQ test? You can do it online. There are free tests given online. But what does an IQ test measure?
Intelligence.
Yeah, but how does it do that? You're right. Uh, no, it measures skills in maths, skills in language, and your spatial imagination. Can you, and if I give you 3 figures, can you find the 4th figure? That type of. So it just does these things. Now, what happened is that as people started doing very well, they said that this is no indicator of success. So uh, there was a landmark survey that was done in Harvard University. Have you heard of Harvard University, USA? One of the premier universities. So what they did is that they followed a class that passed out in high school for 20 years. And they said that let's look at whether the toppers there become very, very successful in life. And they found that, so every year they would reach out to these people and check out all the major milestones that have occurred in their life. So they checked out if these people have got a job, if they went to college, if they passed out, got a job, got married, children, noted down everything. But after 20 years, they found that there is no evidence that the toppers, people who had scored very high on an IQ test, did well in life. And that is when this entire movement started on emotional intelligence, also called EQ or emotional quotient. So they said, why are some people who are so intelligent, why is it that they do stupid things or they're unable to manage certain simple things? Why is somebody who's very intelligent unable to, connect with a team or to manage a team? Does it happen that you find in your teams really intelligent people unable to actually gel with a team? So the question is why? And one of the things that was found was this entire thing about emotional intelligence. Okay, so if you like reading, there's a wonderful book on emotional quotient written by a gentleman called Daniel Goleman. Daniel Goleman's book on emotional quotient, one of the good books, very readable, not a textbook type, it's easy to read. What does what does emotional quotient do? The first thing is that, do you recognize your emotions? Do you know when you're angry? Do you know when you're happy? Can you recognize that? Do you can you recognize emotions in others? So do you know when somebody is sad, when somebody is happy? Do you know the difference? The third thing is that, can you manage your emotions? If you're a person, can you keep your anger in check? Can you keep your irritation, frustration in check? Okay, so um, the fourth one is, can you manage emotions in others? If you can do all this, then you are a successful person who is very good in EQ. And that is what people talk about when you're talking about people connect. That this person understands at an intuitive level, understands human beings. So what happens is that when somebody is sad and down, what happens if the manager comes and shouts at this person? Something sad has happened. So, let me give you a stupid example for sad. Somebody's pet dog died and the person is feeling very sad. And the manager came and shouted at this person. Or this person is not feeling well. Manager came and shouted at this person. Do you think this person will think that I have a great manager, I should do something for it, I'm inspired, let me go and do some work? He'll become aggressive. Uh, Unfortunately, people remember such things. People remember small acts of kindness. People remember things like that, that when I was down, you came and shouted. Okay, so people do remember this. And a leader has a big role to play when it comes to that, saying that, did you do the right thing? Even though I know there's work pressure, there is deadlines, there are productivity issues, but somebody is really not well, or somebody is really not in a position to do that, or something sad has happened in that person. Did you then say, hey, let me step back and give this person some space? Okay, so how did you react as a leader? So what happened is that it is found that more and more people now have emotional intelligence, emotional quotients as one of the indicators of successful leaders. So one of the stellar examples of this is Sundar Pichai. You all know Sundar Pichai, Alphabet, Google head. Okay. Now, he is a formidable leader. He's got lots of other skills, but his proudest boast is that The teams where he's worked with, nobody has anything negative to say about him. He's always thought to be supportive, helpful, a person who has motivated me. He's been that sort of a leader. So today he becoming CEO is no accident, because that is the value. These are highly qualified people. These are very bright people. You don't shout at them and get it. Remember that Steve Jobs created another company using exactly the opposite methods of shouting at people and pushing at people and being in the face and saying you're stupid and doing all those things. But if you want durable success, the Sundar Pichai method is much better. So EI, your ability to look at emotions of people. Okay, that is very, very important. Okay, so you're a leader. Sometimes do people get emotional? Do they get angry, for example? Do they cry during appraisals? And no, I'm telling you, I've had. So I used to, we used to have a recovery head. His name was Jatinder, a 6 foot Sardar, huge guy. And he had performed very badly. And right through the year, I kept telling him, your performance is not acceptable, action will be taken, and he did nothing about it. And he got a very, very bad appraisal. So it was very difficult for me when a 6 foot giant Sardarji started crying. If he had got angry, I would have managed. But I simply didn't know what to do with this guy sobbing his head off. And big, tough guy, I didn't know. So you have emotional, and it's about, you do have people getting emotional, getting angry, irritated, frustrated. As a leader, how do you handle it? That's important. So EI, use of EI, very important when it comes to leadership. Okay, so whenever you are talking about the, the leader and you're talking about motivation, this is all that motivation is. That, do you understand the emotions of your team? Is it easy? No. You also have tasks to be achieved. And you're thinking, but my boss is not very empathetic towards me. Yes, but you have a choice. Your manager had his choice and the manager made it by not being empathetic. Can you be empathetic? So it really is, do you want long-term results or short-term? When you're being pushy, when you're being aggressive, you get short-term results. When you're being empathetic, use of EI, long-term stable teams, you build a team that is high performing and stable. Okay, so we look at some of the theory that predicts it. Okay, so the first theory that actually put what we call um, uh, that actually started talking about leadership theory was the Ohio State the studies, and lots of what Ohio State went on to then be used by other leadership theories. Okay, so this was the thing. So what did they say? That they said that leader has two roles. The first one that they call initiating structure, and the second one they call consideration. Okay, what do we know these as? What are the common words we use for initiating structure and consideration? When it comes to leadership, we always talk of two things. So somebody wants to guess what those two things are. You can give me your words too. You don't have to give me technical words. What are the two things that the manager should be worried about? So there is, first thing is to worry about the job, team, task to be done, whatever done, how much should I do today, what is to be done, quality, do all that. Deadlines, budget, worry about that. Second, no, second, team, team. What about my people? Are my people happy? Are my people getting what they deserve? Do they have the resources to do the job? Are they equipped to do the job? Are they trained? So that is, so in normal management jargon, they're called task orientation and people orientation. This is a normal jargon that is used. You might have heard about that. It is so they call that initiating structure and consideration, which is basically worry about the job and worry about the people. And some managers do more of one and less of the other. Some people do half of it. That is really left to a manager to do. But you need to manage both these. And if you can do that successfully, then you have. So then let's look at the other one. the the next thing about it is about the Blake and Mountain model. You can see the Blake and Moulton model. Very good. Okay. Because you know what is going to happen now? I'm going to take a break and you're going to do the teaching. Okay. So take out your mobiles. Go to Blake and Mountain on Google and you tell me what these four things are. What are all these five types of management talk about? And give me examples from, you can do it on the net, you can do the research on it. So you have 5 minutes and you will tell me what this is. You know, Blake and Moulton called it concern for production, but basically it is task orientation. So even if you're not from manufacturing, it is basically getting the job done. How much do you worry about the job? How much do you worry about people? That is what. So read that and now you will tell me what are the five styles of leadership. Okay, done. Can we discuss or you won't? Okay. Okay, now, how many of you have taken a leadership training program? Any of you have attended a leadership training program? Okay. And what was the leadership training about? Did they use a standard model? Okay. 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 Lots of training program also uses the Blake Moulton method. Okay. So what is the two axes? What does he talk about? Blake and Moulton? Yeah. So what is concern of people? Okay. And concern for production? Okay. So you've been reading it. So two axes that he talked about. First thing he talked about is that how much is a leader as a leader? What is my concern for the job to be done? How much am I concerned about the people? And these are independent things. Okay. Now we let's look at the interesting styles of leadership. Okay, what do you think is country club management? So give me an example of a country club manager. Okay, what is a country club manager? Okay, and yeah, so what sort of a leader is somebody who is very concerned about the well-being of the team, shows very low concern about the job being done? So what type of leader would that person be? Easygoing. And would you call him a nice manager? No. Why? I thought, he's being nice to you. He's only concerned about you. You say, I'm feeling very tired. He says, go home. Nice manager. The point is it confuses you. The country club management style confuses you. Okay, so this is what happens when somebody too much is too concerned about them, very little concern about the job being done. The exact opposite of that is the authority compliance management, also called a slave driver. Have you heard this phrase called slave driver? That whips a person. How much have you done today? Only 10. Talk, 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 talk. Do 30 today. That type of leadership. You have very pushy. Have you all worked with very pushy bosses who shout and don't listen to you? Get the job done. You're too bad. You're not feeling well. Too bad. You've come. Just do the job. That type of thing. No concern to the team. Only concern about the job being done. I don't care whether you're feeling good, bad, you hate me, you don't like me. No problem. Just do the job. Have you worked with such bosses? I'm sure every company has pushy bosses. Okay, so the problem with that style, the funny thing that happens in India, what do you think happens to these bosses? What do you think happens to these bosses in your company? Yeah, but what happens to them? Yeah, but mostly they get promoted because in India, actually these people get results. Surprising, but is it the right style? No. Is it a recommended style? No. But you're right. A lot of the team members feel very suffocated. They feel devalued. They are not motivated. So a lot of them leave. But these people get results in the short term. In the short term, they get results. Now, uh, the opposite is when you have team management, which is the ideal style. where you have high focus on job and high focus on the team. That is what a manager should do. Management is about, there are pulls and pressures. Are you able to balance that? There are pulls and pressures. The boss is shouting at you, your team people saying, I'm not going to work. The customer is shouting at you. How do you manage all these pressures? Okay. And as you get more and more experience, what do you think will happen to these pulls and pressures? What do you think will happen when you get promoted? It'll only increase, it'll get worse. So it is about you being able to balance the need of the team and need of getting the job done. So these are effective managers who can do both. And then you have somebody who says, let me do it halfway, middle of the road management, which is a very common style that you have. They say, let's get some focus on jobs, some focus on people. Let's keep both the boss happy, which is a team leader's boss, and also keep the team happy, and we'll do that. It doesn't take you too far. It doesn't take you too far. Very, very common style of leadership. Very average style of leadership. But this is what the Blake Moulton, for the first time, Blake Moulton actually allowed people to look at what is your leadership style. And they gave a scale on which you can do that. And they say that, okay, if you're an impoverished manager, then you are not going to be there for a long time. If you don't concerned about the people, you're not concerned about the job, then you'll be asked to leave. So we don't discuss that. The other four styles are very commonly found in corporates. Okay, so it becomes it's quite common to find very pushy bosses in the Indian thing. So this is one of the models. Now, what the Blake Moulton style did was they started a new thing called behavioral leadership. The behavioral leadership theories say that leadership can be, nobody is a born leader. You can be trained, you could be made into a leader. So when you have people who have taken over and you become a leader, one of the sterling examples of people becoming a leader is Azim Premji. He had a company, his father died young, at 25, he became the head of a company and then built this empire. Okay, so leadership was given to him. And what he did with that leadership is important. And the scale of the company he built, having no skills in computers, that is what is important. So this is what you can do. Now, the next theory is called the least preferred question. It's called the Fiddler Theory, and it uses something called a least preferred coworker questionnaire. Now, the least preferred coworker questionnaire has been sent. It is there on LMS2. So I would recommend that you fill it up to understand what this theory is about. Okay, to look at and understand this thing. It has been sent. You can, let me show you how it looks. Okay. I'm sorry, I'm not able to open it, but it's it tells you about what does the Fiddler theory talk about. It talks about the least. It uses something called a LPC that has been sent. Please use that. The second thing is Blake Moulton's questionnaires also allow you to actually come up with a number for how task oriented you are, how people oriented, so that you can check your own leadership style. Now, they talked about two things. They talked about task or relationship orientation. They talked about, they said that everybody has a fixed leadership style. So it doesn't just depend on who the leader is, it also depends on the team members. And in some teams, the leader is found successful, may not be successful in all teams because the situation is different. So, what may be successful because the leadership style is very conducive to a certain type of group may not be, it may not be conducive for other type. That is what Fiddler talked about. And he said that these are the important things to take into account when you're coming up with leaders. That what is the relation between the leader and the team member? Is it good? It is solid? Is bad? Is terrible? What is the thing? How much of its job is, what is the task structure? Is it something which is very simple, where everybody knows the job that they're trying to do? Or is it very complex, where there has to be a lot of interaction between the leader and the team member to figure out how to do the job? And the third one is that how much of authority does this person have in the company? What do you think is meant by position power that a leader gets? What do you think is the position power? What can a leader do to a team member? The leader can do only two things to a team member: promote or throw out. So you have only two things. How much of power do you have to do that? If I feel, hey, you can't throw me out. You know, my uncle is the chairman of the company. Do what you want. You can't throw me out. Then I have no position power. So, what type of leader? So, do three things. First thing is, how strong is the relation between the member and the leader? Second one is the task very easy? Third one is how much of position power that you have. So Fiddler came up with this very, very interesting thing. Can you see this? And the dotted line is the task oriented. The solid line is the people oriented. And he's tried to say that when should you use what? Fiddler sort of came up with a prescriptive model. He says that given these three things, when you talk about leader team member relationships, you're talking about task structure, you're talking about position power, then what is, should you be more task oriented or should you be more people oriented? So Fiddler actually came up with a very prescriptive, very interesting theory. And can you see this? Can you read this? No, sir, you can open that on your mobile too. Say Fiddler Contingency Theory, and look at this thing. And you tell me, what is Fiddler trying to say? Fiddler said something very interesting. People online,
Yes, sir.
can you open this on your mobile too? Fiddler's Contingency Theory, and look at this diagram there. If the diagram is not there, you have a description of this. Okay, you are able to read it.
Yeah,
Okay,
we are able to read it. Online
okay,
is
good,
correct.
good. Then online, what's your name?
Lucas.
Okay, so what do you think Fiddler is trying to say? What did Fiddler try to say? What is his theory all about?
Fiddler is trying to give three different favorable, moderate, and unfavorable, and
True.
where we are going from poor performance to good performance.
Yeah.
And he is categorizing into 8 different category, and where they have a structure in between leader member relationship, task structure, and position power, in where one is good, one is high, and another one is strong or weak. So this kind of balancing, Phil is
Okay.
trying to balance these things.
Okay. Perfect. Perfect. Okay. So we'll look at this in a little more in detail. Okay. Let's look at the first situation. The first situation is leader member relation is good. Task structure is high, which means that everybody knows what job they have to do. I don't have to tell them every day that this is, it's very clear what is the job that you have to do. Position power is strong. Position power of the leader is strong. Okay. When does this occur? When do you think this situation occurs? Relation is good. The everybody knows what they have to do, and the boss is actually quite powerful. Can get somebody promoted if they do well. Can get the person knocked off the team if the person is not doing well. When does this happen? This happens with a stable team. Team has been with the manager for some time. They have a great deal of comfort. Everybody knows what is expected from them, what the boss expects. And they also know that the boss is quite powerful in the hierarchy. The surprising thing is that if you're looking at this and you're looking at performance, what Fiddler says is that in this situation, it's better to be more task oriented than people oriented. Why do you think he says that? Going is good. Team is happy with me. They know what is to be done. They know what I'm expecting. They also know that, if they don't do, I can punish them. So Fiddler says in this situation, task oriented managers do well in this situation rather than people oriented. Why do you think he says that? Come on, don't be so silent. Give me some answer.
Because comfort level is already there in the team.
No, no, not about scaredness, but you also have to work. When the team is very stable, the boss is very comfortable, then Fiddler says you don't have to worry too much about, every day coming and taking care of people. Oh, how are you? Oh, happy birthday, good morning, happy Mondays. Some managers have a habit of saying happy Mondays, most irritating thing. So is it, you don't have to do any of that because the team is comfortable with you. You doing it will not have any effect on the task that is being done. It has very little aspect because the team feels that I agree, I am comfortable with this boss, and this person will get me promoted if I do well, and I know what I have to do to do well. In this situation, Fiddler says just be task oriented. Worry most about the job being done. You don't have to get too worried about people because people are in they are very comfortable with you. And he says if you get too oriented towards people, then your performance might actually dip. Why? Because task structure is very clear. What is to be done? Now you have a boss who's coming and telling you about, oh, how are you feeling? I know what I have to do. I'm comfortable with you. So just leave me alone. I'll do it. That type of situation. So really a very, very interesting thing he said, that when things are all going well, don't bother too much about people, worry about the job. People are there, they know what is to be done, then worry about monitoring job, how do you do it there, removing roadblocks, do all that. Don't worry too much about people. Fiddler also said in the other situation, when all these are poor, then you again get task oriented. If the relation between the leader and the team members is not very good, if the structure is not very well known, which means we have to figure out what to do as we go along, and the leader is probably new to the company, people feel that he can't get the lot of things done. Fiddler says what will work is still task oriented. Why do you think he says that in that condition? That's why I said it's good. You brought it. Please respond. So uh, the I and you don't have a relationship, right? So how does it matter whether I build a relation or not? I have to. What is my concern right now? Let's start getting the job done. I'm putting out fires. I'm trying to keep my job. I'm trying to save the company. I'm in that situation. Would I get too worried about whether you like what I'm doing or not? So that is why he said, if in a situation which is where there are lots of problems, get task oriented. Then you say, I'll tell you what is to be done. Please do it. And you need to do it this way. You don't like it because you and I don't have a relation. So he says these two extreme situations where my relation is extremely good or it is extremely poor, get task oriented. When there is somewhere in between, which means that I can pull it towards it becoming comfortable, then you get more people oriented rather than, yeah. Now clear blueprint. All of you can become leaders. You know what is to be done. The question is to figure out where you are. Not easy. The skill is for a leader to say that of these three things, where am I? Is it good? Is it moderate? Is it poor? To take a realistic look at things. Okay, so uh, because what happens in firefighting? What happens when things are really bad in your companies? For example, production not done. Production figures nowhere near being achieved. Then what will happen? No. But what will happen? Attrition will happen later. So what will the pressure start? How will the pressures happen? Yeah, so there would be, everybody starts piling on the other person saying, get the job done. Why? Get the figures moving. The same thing. Any of you from sales? Okay, so the same thing happens when there are no sales figures happening. Get it moving. Where? Same thing happens. So at that time, nobody is worried whether that person going to feel bad. I'll figure about that later. Right now, there is a crisis on hand. I have to get that done. I have to get production done. I have to get sales done. So let me push this fellow right now. If he hates me and leaves after 6 months, I'll figure out then. But right now you have, when the short term need is to get the job done, then you would ensure that, okay, so we were discussing that you had a different viewpoint. You were saying that, okay. See, I'm not saying what is right or wrong. In fact, there is no such thing as a right or wrong. I'm just debating. I'm very happy to debate with you. There are two ways. Okay, your name, Bodhi. Okay, and uh, what would happen is, I'm not a boss you all respect, and I come and give you a pep talk. Do you think it'll be very impactful? Saying that fellow talks. What does that fellow know? Isn't that usually the response? Yeah, I think this fellow keeps telling me something. You're great. You're champions. What champions? We are. Things are not happening. Better thing for the manager to do at that time, my opinion. We could differ on this, but my opinion is to say things are not going well. This is my plan. Can we discuss that? Isn't that going to be a little more I'm at least got you thinking, saying, I've got a plan in place. This is my plan. You will do this. You will do, you will do, you will do. This is a deadline. Can we do it? We're getting into that mode. So do that. Next stage, I will think about and tell you, say after 1 week. That is what Fiddler is talking about, saying that adopt this style of management when things are going bad or when things are in a crisis. When things are really going bad, what happens? One person takes charge and says, everybody do this, and that's how it is done. You can't have a discussion at that time. A pep talk will probably, where people are anyway demoralized. So, you just talking in the air doesn't really help. Okay. Uh, but please take this with a pinch of salt. I don't usually give political examples, creates emotional problems. So you all know the Bombay, the terrorist attack, right? And Manmohan Singh comes on air and says, "Hum unhe nahi chodenge." Yeah, the same reaction. Same reaction. Saying, do something. Mr. Prime Minister, do something. Not tell the nahi chodenge. We have never seen such. So you want them to act. So one thing that the leader can do is to say, I have a plan. Right or wrong, great or not, I have a plan. And this is my plan, team. So what happens is the team, instead of worrying about the problem, says, okay, is this good or bad? Then they'll poke holes in the say this, that. But overall, it becomes there. Short time periods, 1 week plan. Let's do this for 1 week and come back. We'll review this. You will find that things start moving. That is what Fiddlers was talking about. Okay, so uh, there have been times uh, when the leader has been very strong, leader member relationships have been very strong, task structure has been very good, position power has been good, where pep talks have worked in adverse situations. So I'll give you a thing. There was a British ruler called Henry VIII, and Henry VIII decided to attack France. France and England always, the ruler would keep attacking each other, so nothing. So there's guys, in those days the king rode on the horse, the soldiers, they marched. So they would walk on that. And as you can imagine, Europe, it could be damp, it could be cold and not very good condition. So they walked for many hours. And what happened is they came across the army, the French army. The French army was bigger than the British army. They were nice, well fed, warm, and in one castle. And a smaller army which was tired after marching for such a thing, cold, damp, feeling miserable. Now the king was expecting these people to go and attack a much larger army. So as you can imagine, even in those days, people didn't really think they wanted to do with them. So the Henry VIII gave what is probably the first known and probably the best known motivation speech. So he gave a rousing motivation speech. Why did it work? He said that, okay, he gave people a chance to go back. He's saying, you don't want to fight with me? No problem. And he said that the people I am going to attack, and with me, the soldiers who are going to be, we are going to be a band of brothers. He called them the band of brothers. It was same motivation speech that your people saying, your champions, oh, we are one family, same type. So he told the motivation speeches have not changed. So he said, people who be with me, they are band of brothers, and people who don't want to be there is no ill will. I wish you well. You can go back. It's a different matter that nobody went back, and they were very successful in that attack against the thing. Why did it succeed? Leader member relations very strong. He's the king, so you have a sense of respect and a sense of ownership over that role and authority. Task structure clear. In the army, you can't have confusion. If you are a soldier, if you are an infantryman, you shoot, then that's what is your job. Roles are very clear. And he's a king. He can do anything he wants. He can give you a lot of money. He can also ask you to be executed. So position power. So it worked very well then. If you have things going bad and you don't have a plan and you have only empty words, it doesn't really work. So it could, uh, you know, people get confused and say, hey, why don't you do something? All this is very fine. Why don't you do something? Okay, so once the pilot was on a flight. I was on a flight, and it was a very bumpy flight, and terrible conditions. And the pilot came up and gave some sort of thing. Yo, we are flying at this altitude. So the old lady, I was sitting in one of there's an old lady who got up and said, "Shut up and continue to fly." We don't want to hear that. That is the apt response to a manager. The correct thing. There is a condition. Things are saying, I don't want to know which altitude. Just get me down safely. Do you have a plan for that? I'll be interested in hearing about that. Don't tell me some rubbish. Thanks for flying this airline. Don't do that. That poor chap has been told by his company, you must do it. So though it is a bumpy flight, stormy conditions, so it doesn't really work. In India, we are too polite to tell our managers this. So we put up with all uh, the motivation talk. Do you have motivation speakers coming and talking to you? That's complete waste of money. I could never understand that. But all HR managers, oh, morale is down. Let's get motivation speaker. If your manager can't motivate him, what will an outsider do? If your work doesn't motivate that person, your salary structure doesn't motivate the person, the company infrastructure doesn't do that, what will then that fellow do? So I, in fact, told my boss, we had a good relation. I told him, if the amount you're paying to that motivation speaker is given to all of us, we'll feel more motivated. Then being forced to, he didn't like it. He was, but I could tell him that we had a good relation. So what Fiddler was saying is exactly that. When you're somewhere in between, do all your motivation, coaching, do all that. When you're in the extreme, if things are going well, you don't have to get into, okay, hi, good morning, how are you feeling? Are you all right? Type of thing. Yes, if things go wrong, yes, people will definitely do that. So this is what is the way that when you actually when you have a leader you're very comfortable with, you don't really worry too much of whether the person wish you happy birthday or good morning. You have a sense of comfort in that feeling. Okay, so we'll move on, look at the other theories of leadership. uh, yeah, the situational leadership, which is a very common leadership theory used in leadership theory in training programs. Most training programs use the situational leadership. There were two gentlemen. One was called Hershey, the other one was called Blanchard. They came up with a situational leadership model. What they said is that there is no one style of leadership. Depending on the situation, a manager will ensure which leadership style that I will use. Okay, so it depends on the skill of the employee and the will of the employee, which is the motivation level of the employee. So depending on these two parameters, I will use that style which is most effective in that situation. So in a day, I might change with different groups. I might use different leadership style even in a day. So with one group who are very, I know them for a very thing, the high performing group, I might use a different leadership style. With the newcomers, I might use an entirely different style of leadership. So Hershey and Blanchard, uh, they said that a good leader should not have one style of leadership for everyone. It should depend on the situation. Sometimes you should be nice to people. Sometimes you should shout at them. Basically, that is what they talked about. Okay. Um, the Blanchard, uh, he went on to write a lot of books. So if you like to read books on management, and the easy books, just about 50, 60 pages, he wrote a series of books called 1 Minute Manager. He wrote a this one called Whale Done, Whale, that WHALE, on building relationships. So he talks about very few things, does a good job. There's a beautiful video on YouTube Whale on Whale Done, which is on building relationship. What he did was something very interesting. He went, uh, if you go to a um, aquatic park somewhere outside India, I don't know if you have that in India. You have these huge dolphins and whales performing for you. They're trained. So he was very interested to understand how do you actually train a whale. So he actually wrote the book after meeting these people and trying to understand and saying, can we do this in our thing? So to just tell you, one of the things that he said is catch people doing things right. He says, as a manager, it's easy to find out and say, hey, you're doing something wrong. Also catch people doing something right. When somebody is doing a right thing, say, hey, yeah, that's good. Okay, so that is what is the Blanchard's one of the dictums of Blanchard. He says, catch people doing things right. And I was listening to this very interesting video. It was um, uh, Inzaman ul Haq. There's a Pakistani cricketer called Inzaman ul Haq. He was talking about Imran Khan. And he was telling that this fellow played very badly in 2 innings of a test match, Inzaman ul Haq. And he was sitting beside the captain. And so Imran Khan said, you know what? I know you got out soon, but that shot that you played, that six that you played, it was a wonderful shot. He just told him that and he slept. For the rest of the flight, he slept. But that reassurance that this person had, that saying, hey, the captain has found something good about me, that is what ensured that this fellow person played much better in the other test match and he did well. So sometimes catch people doing things right too. It's always, don't say, you have not done this, you have not done. Yeah, they have not done. But what about things that they have done? Have we found that out? And this is not, I'm not telling you it is not one of these HR type of leadership. This is what is going to get you successful. Because people like it when you find, it is very reassuring to a team member when they find that you have actually found something that is they're doing that is well, that is good. Okay, now the path goal theory is okay. So the next theory that we talk about, okay, so what we'll do is it's 3 o'clock. Do you want to break now or do you want to break after about 15 minutes? You want your choice. Now? Okay. Okay, so we'll be back at 3:15. Okay. Online, people who are listening to this online, we are taking a 15-minute break. We'll be back at 3:15. So gives you some time to go and have a cup of coffee. So I'll see you at 3:15.
Thank you.
You're leaving now? Yes. ones owned by Siddharth. Where you work for Mindtree, or where do you? Oh, okay. But time Mindtree was the only company there. Okay. It's actually for people who stay in South, quite convenient to go, right? It's much more convenient than going to either Electronic City or what do you do for Bell helicopters? Oh, you do the stress analysis on the designs and. But now most of it is simulation on the screen only, right? Okay. But you do actually, you have a lab where you subject them to various forces and to do all that, or it's all simulated on the. What is hand calculation? Okay. 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 Now we have quite a few of them in Bangalore, right? You're a mechanical engineer, right? Yeah. Okay. Oh, okay. So it's nice to see so many careers in very good companies. So good. I'm willing to test any of them. So if you want somebody to sit in a plane to test something, I'm willing. Not allow it. I've been to the Boeing factory at Seattle. It's a huge factory. At in one place, it's the single largest single unit. You know, factories could be multiple things. This is one thing. In one shed, they can assemble 8 planes at a time. Right? Give people some more time. Where do you work? Okay. Okay. So what does Scriptbox do? We are a fintech company, like mutual funds, deposits. Okay. Okay. So good to see a HR perspective which is different. How big is your company? It's like 10 years old organization. Okay. Just nice. It's keep running. Okay. Like mid-size. Okay. It's a growing phase, right? Okay. And you offer fixed deposits. We have an application. Okay. Like suggestion. Where you invest. Okay. Companies like cycles. Zerodha is a similar. Yeah, similar. It's a trading platform. Yes. Yeah. But these people, I think, they're more into suggesting and advising more than exactly advice. Yeah. So what I understood. Yes, sir. Exactly. Advisory. So there was some talk about Zerodha also getting into mutual funds and coming up with their own mutual funds. In fact, we both will work together. Okay. Zerodha and because they started off by saying we will not give you any advice. You can only trade, and that is why we'll not charge you. Whatever people spend on research, we will remove that and give you a discount so that You decide which stock to buy, and we will not tell you. So that was the model that they followed. They did very well. We had a collaboration. Okay. But products are different. Where's your company? No. Wow, cool. Come to my office, Leela Plaza. Wow. Easy to find out. Easy to find, nice surrounding. You want to meet, just come to Leela. There's a lot of beauty, nature and all. It's a beautiful place, very ambience. Simple hotel. There was some talk of them selling that. I think they sold the Mumbai thing. They used to be there in Mumbai, Bangalore, and Goa. I think they sold one of them. Okay, we start so that we all go home and hopefully we'll not get caught in this. Online, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Sir. Yeah, okay.
Yes, sir.
Yes, you want to tell me something? Okay. The next model that we are talking about is called the leader exchange model. In leader exchange model, he says that the teams have become so big that you cannot manage or build relations with every member of the team. So a leader will build some relation with some people, and he called that the in-group, and he said you will have a formal relation with the rest of the team. So that is a leader exchange model that then there was while we keep talking about leaderships and we talk about them, there is we look at certain types of leaders now. One type is the charismatic leader. You know, the Vijay Mallya, Richard Branson type of thing, larger than life. You know, they when they speak, people get really influenced by what they have to say. They really love their leader and they can crack a joke. That type of leadership style, that is the charismatic leader. So what made a charismatic leader? The first one is the ability of the leader to articulate a vision and say that this is the road we should all take. And when you can do that, then the second thing is that is there a personal risk to the person? Would something happen if this person, would he lose money? Would he go to jail if something what he's saying didn't happen or didn't happen the way it was? The third thing is sensitivity to followers' needs. Does he understand what the followers are going through? Does he understand the pain? And can this person think out of the box? Are there things that this person does which is not the normal thing? Okay, so these are some of the things that we talked about. When the charismatic leaders, when you take them to extreme levels, you could have really crazy leaders because they've used their charismatic leadership. Have you heard of a cult called Charles Manson? He got them to commit mass suicide. So you could have that type of mad leadership. Okay, so when charismatic leaders go beyond certain things, we were talking about charismatic leaders, and we are talking about what happens when uh, things go. Hitler was another example of that. Brilliant speaker, but he really got onto the wrong side, and then okay, now the last thing, last 2, 3 things that we talk about and then we move on is that we are talking about this entire concept called, the new concept that came up was that there are two types of leaders. There are transactional leaders who maintain a status quo, and there are people who can transform an organization. Those are transformational leaders. Now, remember, there is no such rule that transformational leaders are better than transactional leaders. That is not to say that transactional leaders are bad. If a company is a very staid, sober company, you don't want transactional leaders. I mean, you don't want transformation. If you went to an old economy company, if you went to places like Ultratech Cement, Asian Paints, Hindustan Unilever, you don't really want somebody who will say, I'll tear this company down and build a new company. You don't want that. You want them to maintain and to continue to grow at the pace that they are. Or in a new company, yes, you want a transformation leader. If the company is not doing very well, you can see that the can we turn around the company? Can we do that? That is what is transformational leadership. Now, one of the best examples of transformational leadership happened when Steve Jobs founded Apple, and then the board of Apple voted him out, though he was the biggest shareholder, voted him out, and he went and started his own company. And then the his replacement really drove the company down the, he brought it to the verge of bankruptcy, and then Steve Jobs came back and then turned the company around. And that is what is one of the best examples of transformational leadership. Till iPod became a big success, Apple was in deep financial trouble. Then they had iPod, they had the iPhone and the iPad being released in quick succession, and they never looked back after that. But the iPod was the critical thing. So to develop that was a big challenge. So he went through a lot of challenge in turning around that. That is what transformational leaders do, who can take a company and just take it to an entirely different level. That is what transformational leaders do. Now, to give you another example, there was, if you're looking at the recent history of TCS, you've had about 3, 4 different leaders who all took it to a different level. Okay, so we had Muthuraman, I think. My apology. He took it to he rode the IT wave, made it into a big company. Then you had N. Chandrasekhar taking it to another level. And you have Rajesh Gopinath driving the new challenges, which is cloud, mobility solutions, AI, ML, driving those things. They're all being transformational leaders. So a company can have multiple transformational leaders. It is not essential that you have one transformational leader and that's about it. And each of them they bring different strengths to the table. They bring in different ideas. So that is what is needed sometimes to drive the company. So you could have, in the same company, you could have multiple, in different points of time, different transformational leaders. So what do transactional leaders do? These are some of the things that they do. One thing that they do is called management by exception, saying that I will look at it only if there's a problem. If things are going smooth, I will not interfere. No news is good news. So if you have bad news, then call me, I'll handle it. So those are some of the things. Now, what does a transformational leader do? He or she does the right things to ensure that the motivation, stimulation, ensuring that people are motivated by wanting to do and wanting to change or wanting to be part of a revolution. Okay, so that is what transformational leaders can do. Okay, so now, would you work for a company where the leader told you that you are my friend, so please come and work with me at your free time, and the only thing I'll give you is when I have the money, I'll buy some pizza for you. When I have the money, I'll buy some beer. I can't pay you for that. Would you join such a company? There were two brothers who convinced their friends to join the company. They were called Wilbur and Oliver Smith. Wilbur and Oliver Wright. And you have them They had no money. So what they said is that we are going to transform the world. Do you want to join us to transform the world? So that was so appealing, and the fact that they were trying to do it was so motivating to their friends that the friends would just help them out of goodness of heart. And they, of course, built the first aircraft. The first recognized air travel happened by these people, by uh, by these two brothers who could not and would not pay their friends for all the work that they put in. So sometimes an idealized leader, the 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 charisma of working for an and transformational leader is to be part of the change and not for money, to be part of the revolution. So there was, have you heard of this company called ACC, which is in the news recently? Have you heard of a cement company called ACC? Okay. So ACC used to be handled by a guy called Sumant Malgonkar. It was once owned by the Tatas. They sold it off. It was once owned by the Tatas and it used to be headed by a guy called Sumant Malgonkar. JRD thought that he's being wasted in ACC, that he should actually come and do something more. So JRD went and met Sumant Malgonkar and told them that you have two choices. You can waste your life making glue to stick bricks, or you can come with me to start a company whose future is unknown but is exciting and will make use of your skills as a he was a very good engineer. He said make use of your skills as an engineer. So he said, which one would you like? Would you like to waste your life doing this, or would you like to come with me? So if you had a choice like that, what he was the chairman of the company. He was not a normal employee. He was a chairman of a very successful company. And JRD is saying, come with me. The other company, I don't know if it will succeed or not, but it's going to be exciting. So what do you think is the right choice? Suman Malgonkar went with JRD. That's a different story. But do you think, would you like to do that? You're a chairman, good successful company doing very well. Future looks bright. Leave that to join a company whose future is unknown. We didn't know whether it will happen. Then Jerry told him, my dream is to build trucks in India. Come with me and build a company where we will build trucks in India. And that company is Tata Motors. Suman Malgonkar left ACC, a nice cushy job. They came there, they had their tie-up with Mercedes Benz to manufacture trucks, and now today Tata Motors at that. Uh, Tata Motors paid a tribute to Sumant Mulgaonkar by calling their car Sumo. You've heard of Sumo, Tata Sumo? That is why it was called Sumo. Not because a large car, it doesn't resemble a Japanese wrestler, but they wanted to honor their first chairman, which was Sumant Mulgaonkar. Literally two people, JRD and Sumant Mulgaonkar in the company to start with. Nobody there, no office, nothing. So from that, he actually built the company to where it is today. Transformational leaders. That is transformational leadership. Transformational leadership shown by JRD too. And in showing a vision to this man saying, you can do a lot more. What are you doing? Useless product, come here, we'll build a different company. That is what, but again, I'm telling that not always required. It is not always required that let's break the company down, start a new company. A lot of leaders try doing that. It is not always successful. It could become a problem when you're trying to teach, trying to do a lot of things, not really always very successful. Okay, so now the next thing is that the two new concepts that are coming are authentic leaders and servant leadership. So these are the next two concepts that we'll talk about, and then we'll move on to organization culture. An authentic leader is what I believe is what you see, that I am the real thing. I will not tell you one thing and believe something else. Whether you like it or not, I will tell you what I believe. I will tell you my vision, whether you agree with that or not. So a lot of these leaders, the leaders that you're seeing today, in the political space, a lot of them are authentic leaders. So people decide whether they like them or not. If you like them, you follow them. If you don't like them, don't follow them. So all the powerful leaders, Putin is one of them, widely popular in Russia because he tells what he is. He's never shied away from telling the truth. So they know what he is. Even when he does stupid things like attack Ukraine, there is popular support still in USSR, in Russia. That is what authentic leaders, that an authentic leader takes pride in saying that what you see is what you get. And the next concept that came up, which is again a concept that, okay, we'll talk about this, is servant leadership. The question is that who does the leader serve? Does the leader serve his agenda or the team's agenda? So that's a question I'm asking. Should the leader be more worried about the team's agenda, or should the leader be worried about his or her own agenda? So the servant leadership says that a servant leader is one who looks at the team's agenda and is only worried about the team's agenda. That is called servant leadership. Now, like everything in management, especially in OB, is it the right way? There is no hard and fast rule saying that this is the only way to do. But leaders who say that I am what the team is, there is no self agenda. I will promote the team, and when the team does well, I will get the benefit of it. I will look at the benefit of that. I don't have to keep telling I have an agenda. And all my agenda is related to the team and the team's well-being. That is called servant leadership. Okay, so this is another type of leadership. Again, no right or wrong answer. And I think, yes, we talk about trust. Okay. Yes. Okay. Okay. So we often talk about my organization and the culture of the organization. Okay. So how would you describe your company? Not more than one. You can't tell more than one line. How would you describe your company in one line? Nobody wants to tell anything. No. If you gave me 4 paragraphs, I can tell you about my company. One line, I can't. Just tell me your company in one line. What type of a company is your company? One line. Okay, he says it's innovative company. Okay. Others, no. Or you are saying, I can't tell you the things I think about the company. It's really not something I can tell in mixed companies. So I can't tell you the language I would like to use. I don't know if that is it. But how would you describe your company? Okay. The others are very quiet. Okay, so largely when we talk about a company, we talk about what is the culture of the company. For example, if you, if I, okay, the gentleman from Bueller left, but who else is from a manufacturing? Somebody else is from a manufacturing company. You're from Bemel. Okay. Do you think the culture in Bemel is the same as culture in Zomato? If I walked into Bemel and I walked into Zomato or Flipkart or your company, would the culture be the same? Would the for a layman who does not know the company, would the vibe that I get in BEML be the same as what I would get in your company? Scribe box, right? What is it? Script box. Okay. Script. Okay. Script box. Okay. Would it be the same? Or it would the vibe that you get in a place like Infosys be the same when you go to a startup, an IT startup, who are doing some other thing? So why is the vibe different? Yeah. So what do you think would be the difference? You're right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Now, when you're describing a company like, say, Infosys, what are the words you use? Words like big, large, number one, words like this. When you're describing a startup, what do you use? Exciting, new, innovative. Why are you doing it? Because you're describing the culture very different. The things that the company takes pride in are very different. Infosys says we are large, we are biggest, we have technology, we have this. The innovative, these people are saying we are coming as the innovative, we are going to be disruptive, we are going to change the way people do something else. That is the culture of that. And because of this thinking, the way the employees interact with others, the way the employees behave among themselves is different. That is what we will. Now, this is what is culture, that there is shared meaning that is held by members that distinguish organization from one. So what makes you different from one organization to another organization? So what do companies do when an freshers joins the company? What does your company do? Does the company give the person a gift the first day they join? No, that is all fine. I'm saying, yeah, what do you give as welcome gift? Yeah, so one mug with your company logo, one jacket with your okay. So why do companies do that? Why do companies do that? And also to reinforce this culture, saying this is who we are. This is the symbol, this is the logo, we're big, we're huge. A startup will never do that. The startup is not going to give you a mug and say this is the logo of our company, you should be there. The startups are doing it good. Okay. There's an interesting startup that I went to. Okay, so uh, I forget the name of that. They make they're in fintech, and they make card readers. Credit card readers, mobile credit card. Huh? Not there's other company. There's an HSR. So I was telling what is different about your company. So the and I was talking to the marketing manager. He says you can drink beer in our company. So this is, and he says company will allow you. Company will pay for it. I said okay, fine. But that is what the company was very proud of. But so they had a big fridge full of beer, and you could drink and work. That lasted for about 6 months. Then they switched off that thing, and they would put files into that fridge. It became a storage thing because they said, hey, this is too much of a good idea. So when you're talking about a company, they say, when a large company, they give you mugs, they give you a jacket to say you're part of the family, you belong now to a very large company of 25,000 employees, Infosians. Okay, is there a name that you give to your own employees? Infosys calls them scripters. You dear scripters, all your communication to the all your employees will begin with dear scripters. Infosys calls their employees Infosians. Wipro calls them Wiproites. So it gives a feeling of belonging. Okay, so you large companies settle down, you'll do well, you'll grow. I used to do training programs for Cafe Coffee Day, and they told two stories. I don't know if I've told you this story. Have I told you this? If I have, please stop me. Um, they tell you two stories. The first thing is that when they opened the first store in MG Road or in Brigade Road, in the first Cafe Coffee Day in Brigade Road, in they opened it, I think, on a Friday or a Saturday. You know how many people bought coffee in that Cafe Coffee Day outlet? Whole day, from about 9 or 10 to 10 in the night, 12 hours. How many people do you think bought coffee that day? 16. So you were close. 16. And they say that we could have closed that day, but we didn't. And we have built that into whatever number of. So we are talking about persistence, that we don't give up so easily. We could have closed when only 16 people came. And the second thing that they take pride is, of the people who worked in that store, 4 of them continue to work in Cafe Coffee. So he says that when we give a job, we also give a career. That people continue to work and grow and become bigger in that company. That is what the company took pride in. So different companies take pride in different things. In Infosys, if you go into Infosys, they talk about integrity. Wipro talk about integrity. So different companies have different cultures. So if you went to a government thing, you would have a very different culture. So how do you actually decide on that? You decide on the basis of all this. First thing is, how adaptable is a company? When a company becomes too big, it finds itself very difficult as a company to change track and move to a new area. Okay, now if Infosys has to come up and they adapt a new technology, it's going to be very difficult. A startup can start the next day. New technology, hey, tomorrow let's start doing it. You can do that because you can change very quickly. Decision making is quick. As a company becomes bigger, it is not so adaptable to change. It is not very different, and people would like to keep doing the same things over and over again. You don't want to move to a new thing. So change is very difficult when in a company that's old. Change is very easy when in a startup. For example, Zomato. What did Zomato start off with? What is the first job that Zomato did? No, what is the first thing that they did? What did Zomato start off as? They said we'll give ratings of restaurants. It was a crowdsourced rating of restaurants. And they quickly realized that we are not going to make too much money with this. And they moved to food delivery. Now, where is just rating and where is food delivery? Food delivery, you need the entire supply chain, from ensuring that you have delivery points, you have the company. But they said, let's change. And they did. So you can't, Swiggy is saying we are going to get into grocery delivery. No, a big company, it finds it very difficult to move so suddenly and to start doing something very drastic. You're doing food delivery, suddenly you have to go to grocery store and pick up even grocery. Becomes very difficult. So uh, that is how adaptable is this company to try out new things, to move in an entirely different direction. Adaptability. The second one is detail orientation of the company. Does a company do they look at even the smallest of things? Detail orientation. Or every product that we make, Apple is a company that is detail oriented, because their the sole reason for existence of Apple is to ensure we make cool products that nobody else makes. The technology should be cool, the way it looks should be cool, so we're going to make that. So everything, every detail, I'm going to take care to ensure it is the best that is possible. The third thing is companies that take great pride in results. Number one, we are the number one company, biggest globally, we are number giants, we are this. Does a company take pride in that? Okay, so if you look at companies like Pfizer, they talk about so many billion of dollars that we have. There's a medical company called Merrick. They take pride in saying that it's a pharma company run by scientists. So they talk about, they don't talk, it's a hugely successful company, no doubt about it. But they talk about innovation. How are we going to fight disease? How are we going to change the way the infection spreads in the world? That's what they talk about. They don't talk about how many $1 billion they make. They make billions of dollars. That's a separate issue. But the pride of the company is it's the scientific workforce. That is the pride. The way you're coming up with a new innovation, that is the pride of the company. Pfizer talks about that let's make billions of dollars. Okay. Now, am I people friendly, employee friendly, customer friendly? Do I ensure that my employees are taken care of? Do I ensure that we ensure that employees are there in all the decisions that we take? Do we take care of our employees? Okay, so that is the other orientation that is there. Okay, does your company also take care of its employees? They constantly worry about, because one thing that companies did during the COVID was also when they quickly realized that it is not just setting up the office at home, which all companies helped out, but also the psychological well-being. Some of those employees started feeling lonely because they're not from Bangalore, they didn't have any friends there. Even if they had friends, probably they were in other places, they were cooped up in very small places. So the companies started reaching out to these employees to ensure psychological well. So did you just worry about that, or did you look at how much of profit do you make? A good company looks after its people. They take pride in people, in the people that you did. The extreme case is in Taj group of hotels when, uh, though there was a terrorist attack, see the pride of Taj Hotel in Mumbai is the story that they will tell you is not about how much of money they make. It is one of the best hotels in India, very popular. You will not get a room very easily. They've had presidents staying there, so they're big. But what they will talk about is that when the 9/11 terrorist attack happened, more employees died than guests. The fact that people don't remember, because they said that the employees actually did, unless the guests came in front of a terrorist, they were not harmed. Not that the terrorists didn't want to harm them. The employees ensured that these people were not harmed. The telephone operator, you can imagine, not a very high level job. A telephone operator called 500 rooms to tell them that there's a terrorist attack and what they should do. Okay. At any moment, the terrorists can come in and shoot you, but they didn't stop calling guests. Why? Because of people orientation, saying the guests are that important. So we will. So Hindustan, this company called Hindustan Unilever, right? So the top management of Hindustan Unilever were having they were having a dinner and a party. A new chairman was coming in, an old chairman was going out. So they were giving a welcome and a farewell party to these people. The top brass of Hindustan Unilever, along with their wives, were present there when the terrorist attack happened. And the banquet manager was a 25-year-old person. Now, in Hindustan Unilever, it's a very old company. So the chairman there, he doesn't even talk to normal human beings. He talks to gods and that level. That's how they treat them, that this person is nearly God. This 25-year-old person, banquet manager, said there's a terrorist attack and they were being evacuated by a fireman that lift, where you get in there and they keep you down and they come back. And so there are only limited people who can be evacuated at one time. That is not something that can take. So she said, I'm going to decide who's going to come. Don't tell me chairman, managing director. No, I'm going to decide. You listen to me. Until I tell you, lie on the floor. So these people lay on the floor. So she said, my job is to ensure you get out safely. So listen to me. And everyone went out. So the fireman said, you also come. She said, no, I have other guests to take care. So we went back, knowing that there is a terrorist attack happening. They were trying to form a human chain. The employees were trying to form a human chain to ensure that the guests were evacuated. At that time, the terrorists came there and a lot of people lost their lives there. Now, you're the chairman of the company and this incident has happened. It is not the fault of Tata's that terrorist attack happened. But what is not known and what is usually not mentioned is that Ratan Tata went personally and visited every single member who lost their life, went to their house, met them. It's a different matter that, very generous settlements were given to people who lost. That's a separate thing. But the chairman going to an individual member saying that, I'm sorry, and saying, do you want some help? That happened to every single member. People orientation. The company could have said, hey, you know what, it happened, not my problem. Government, you take it. But they didn't. They said it is our employees. So the employees respond in that manner because they know that this is the people orientation of the company, of the group. And last is integrity. No better example than Infosys. That do we ensure that all our dealings with everyone is at the highest level of integrity, that there is nothing that is wrong. That so a company can have some of these, can have all of this as its culture. You could have some of these, you could have all of these. You could be a people oriented person, but who wants to be result oriented, you can do that also. So it depends on what does a company want to be, and what are some of the things that were done. That one thing that is there is that the one thing that is formed is, do we form one group? Like the best example of that is ex-servicemen. An ex-serviceman will always say, oh, you're an ex-serviceman, I'm ex-serviceman, we are one. Why? We are part of a larger family called the defense forces. So they'll always find out some common thing and they'll definitely become friends because they're part of this clan. We are part of this group called the army or the air force or the navy. And we will always find other people who are like us. I may now be somebody else. I might now be running my own business, but I'll still feel a part of that organization because of the culture of that organization. The second one is advocacy, which is what startups, I'm not saying all startups, some of them do. That nothing looks set. Today we have, all of us do coding, so all of us do it. Third day we will all do marketing, so we'll all call up people and start doing. So everything is nothing is set, nothing is structured. Everybody does all roles. So for people who like doing that, that is the culture of the place. That everybody is running around. Okay, I'm doing 20 different things. I'm also looking at inventory. I'm doing coding. I'm doing something else. I'm also looking to ensure that people get enough tea during the time that they're spending in the office. All that I'm doing. Adhocracy. There's nothing set. The culture of the place that is always unsettled, that it is always, things are often fluid and changing very quickly. That sort of a culture. The third one is where everything is about the market. That I want to market share, about how do you increase market share? What is your market share? What was it last month? This month, where is it gone up? That type of where the market. So if you went to a sales organization, an organization like Hindustan Unilever or Coke, every salesperson is obsessed with the market share they have in that territory. So even at a salesman level, they know the market share and they are only talking about that. They only talk about market. Sorry. Now, the last one is where hierarchy is very important, where there is a boss and there are subordinates and there are other people, and you can't just go and talk to the boss because the boss won't talk to you. He will only talk to that type of hierarchy. Any old economy company would be highly hierarchical. And when you have a hierarchical thing, you can't just go barge into a boss and the boss is boss. Like boss says this. So, and the boss speaks to the boss is God. He'll speak to lesser gods, who'll speak to lesser gods, and somewhere it will come down to you saying you should do this. But you will never see the big boss. That type of organization. So any old economy company, you even better run companies like Ultratech are extremely hierarchical driven, where you have a boss and a subordinate relation. That is the culture of the place, because it is all it's a very stable sort of operation. You don't need too much of change. Now, um, if you're this is the okay, we'll not do this. This what when we talk about organization culture, what are some of the things that we talk about? The first one is, does it encourage teamwork? Does organization encourage collaboration? Or do we stay in a silo? We talk of departments and hierarchy in the department, or is there collaboration that happens? One of the main skills that we are talking about is the need for collaboration within your team, outside your team. Wherever there is talent available, wherever there's expertise available, you have teamwork there. Are you using that? Now, does it reward innovation, or does it say, don't come up with change, we're very happy? Or do we reward innovation? Somebody has an innovative idea, are we willing to, and it looks very nice on paper, would we be willing to risk it? Changing any process, changing any product is always risky. So do we encourage innovation? Do we tell that person, come up with new ideas? We'll look at that. We'll evaluate that. Is that what we are going to do? Or are we saying no? For example, the first company that came up with a working prototype of a digital camera was Kodak. And what did they do to that product? Killed it. Why? They were too scared it will start eating into their regular business. But they could have come up to the market with a working prototype much before companies like Canon and Nikon came up with that. And they could have ensured a large market share that would more than compensate for that. What happened was that that division sadly had to close down because nobody bought the film anymore. So is a company short-sighted, and does it stifle innovation, or does it encourage innovation? Every company, if you ask it, says they encourage innovation. But very few companies actually do. In very few companies can a low-level employee say, I have a great idea, and this is my business plan, and the top management will listen to that. Okay, no, one of the ideas that Google does is that 20% of your time you can spend on new projects that you can decide. But you need to tell the company, what are you trying to do? You can't simply say, do nothing. You can't watch YouTube videos of cats and say that I'm going to spend 20. That doesn't happen. You can say, I'm working on an idea, and start and spend 20% of your working day doing that. They're they're coming up with they want to encourage innovation. Does somebody know why does Google want to encourage innovation? Because they miss the bus on a lot of big ideas. They miss the bus on social media. They're not there on social media. They missed the buzz on videos, and then finally had to buy YouTube at a much higher cost. So they're saying, hey, we should be ahead of the curve. So we're going to let our people actually come up with that. Okay, so they tried buying Facebook. It didn't work out. And Facebook became a much bigger company, and the rest is history. But so they're saying that we have not been innovative enough, and we have let some of the other companies be more innovative. So we should try to get over that. And again, does it stifle initiative? If does your company say, I have a new idea how to improve things? They say, okay, fine. You need to fill up a form, and you need to submit it to this person, and that person is going to initial that and send it to the boss. Do you think that person is interested in innovating, or does he think it's too much of a trouble? So does a company encourage initiatives, new things that people do? Or do you say, hey, I know everything, I have told you, do that job? That is the culture. Now, every job culture, it largely depends on the sort of the market that you work in. Okay, now if you have a startup culture in an auto industries, it would create havoc. People are not used to it. They're used to a very structured way of working. Everything is defined. There's an organization that defines everything and say, these are the steps. You need to do step 1, 2, 3, 4. Today you will do step 1, and then you will tell the result. If there is no problem tomorrow, that is what they're used to. And if you go and tell them, you know what, today we will not, we'll let you choose the steps, becomes a problem. Even large companies like Toyota worldwide have a very structured working. So again, the thing I'm wanting to say is that all these is not mandatory that you should change the culture of the place. Not needed. If the culture is strong enough, then good for you. Each culture, each company has its own culture. Now, sometimes when you're trying to merge companies, culture becomes an issue. Okay, now assignment 2 case study. Has anybody got Daimler Chrysler? Okay, so one of the case studies would be Daimler Chrysler. So that is about culture of two companies. One was Daimler that manufactures Mercedes-Benz, and Chrysler that is basically a mass-produced car. The companies merged, but the problem was the culture, and they could never really work together. So sometimes companies, when you're talking, Tata Group taking over Air India, I really don't know about if the culture of Air India is very conducive for taking over. I think they took a very emotional decision, but I think they will have a problem with on improving the culture of the place, on improving the working culture of Air India. It's about the culture of the place. So Air India culture very different from Indigo Airlines. Indigo is an airline that is obsessed with only two things. Do we take off on time? Do we land on time? They don't look at a third thing. They're not interested. Now, Air India is looking at other things. They're talking about employee satisfaction. They're talking about comfort. They're talking about Maharajas. They're doing different things. Now, Indigo is simpler. Simple thing. Okay, so they don't worry too much about customer comfort, whether you like the method. No, we take off on time and land on time. That's it. And if you're a business traveler, that is more important than anything else. In-flight magazine does not work as much as taking off on time and take off. So if you've flown Indigo, they announce that when they take off on time, they announce it, saying we have taken off on time. When they land, they announce it. They're obsessed with the entire thing. They actually track how many planes took off on time and how many times landed. The person who took off late or landed late gives an explanation why it happened. That is the culture of the place. Air India is a little more laid back and saying, let's look at other things. So to change culture is not going to be easy. Okay, while you could have many different cultures, what is the dominant culture? That is important. When a company has a strong culture, then every member feels that what the culture is. How do you know an organization culture? So my question is, how do you know an organization? Nobody tells you this is a culture of an organization. So how do you know? And you're telling them things. Have you ever been told this is how we do things in our company? Or this is how we don't do things in our company? That is how culture is told. In our company, for example, if you went to Infosys or Wipro, you're told that if you are caught making a small mistake in integrity, you will be sacked. If you produce a fake bill, irrespective of the value, the fact that you did something wrong is enough to sack you. So you're getting a message to people saying, watch out, integrity. Similarly, if you make a fake promise to a customer and you're not able to make that commitment and you made it on behalf of them, you could get sacked. So this is the messages that people get. So symbols, symbols are important when when strong cultures are there. People identify with certain colors, with certain symbols. Okay, have you heard of Indra Nui? Have you heard of Indra Nui, CEO, ex-CEO of Pepsi? Come on, tea doesn't help. Tea break didn't help. Okay, have you heard of Indra Nui, Indian origin lady, CEO of Pepsi? Okay, seriously, there was an Indian origin lady. Her name was Indra Nui from IIM Bangalore, who went on to become the CEO of Pepsi. So there was a Pepsi function and she went wearing a red color sari. Her boss took her aside and said, don't ever wear red. Red is a Coca-Cola color. We don't wear it in Pepsi. Serious, huh? They take it seriously. The boss was not joking. The boss didn't say, ha ha, Coca-Cola color. No, he's saying, don't wear it again. About culture, about the symbols that you have, that this is my color. Blue and red are color. Red, Coca-Cola. We will not wear Coca-Cola. Strong cultures, they always have, they look at symbols. That is why you give people mug. That's why you give people, and see, these are symbols. This is our emblem. This is what we drink coffee from. This is the coffee mug, we drink it. That is what everybody does. All that is part of the symbols that people use to identify with the culture. Okay, so any organization, for example, if you went to McDonald's worldwide are obsessed with cleanliness, even in India. They clean like no restaurant does. They audit cleanliness, and it's an international audit. They come to, for example, they'll go to a restaurant there and they know what to check. Everything has to be international. So they're obsessed with cleanliness. When there are no guests or very few guests, you clean. That is what the organization culture is. That, and to ensure that the taste is same worldwide. So French fries in India will taste the same as French fried in any other part of the world. Okay, except in Japan maybe, but or in Southeast Asia, but otherwise. French fry is the same. They sprinkle some fish powder and all that on it. That's the only difference. If you ask them not to, it will taste the same. So you could, that is what is the culture of that. Cleanliness, standardization, that's the culture of the place. Is it that, should that be the culture of Infosys? No. Should that be the culture of Zomato? No. Zomato, you're talking about the excellence in delivery. Can I deliver what you want very quickly? That is what I'm worried about. So different, what is the stronger the culture, what are the functions that a culture does is it tells you the boundaries. What, anytime an employee hears, look, this is not done in our company, or this is the only way we do things in the company, you're talking about the culture of the place. So it tells you boundaries that you can use or you can't use, what you can do in a place or you can't do in a place. So that is exactly what a culture, or they defines boundaries, clearly tells you what you can do and what you cannot do. Like they told Indra Nooyi, you can't wear red. That is Coca-Cola. That is not allowed. So you're told what you can do and what you cannot do. That what is important and what is not. Okay, so that is what is about. So I have a friend who works for Caterpillar. Have you heard of Caterpillar? Large company that deals in earth moving equipment, world's largest. So, we were talking and he was telling that, though it's an American company, there is very little attrition. People are not usually sacked in Caterpillar because he's saying that it takes 6 months for people to figure out how Caterpillar works. So it's not easy to recruit people and to get them to perform because it will take him 6 months to even figure out how the company is and how the company works. So very rigid, very rule bound, very hierarchical. So it is not easy for somebody to come in. So lots of don'ts. You can't do this and you can't do that. That's the culture of the place. Culture, like mugs, any symbol, mug, the jackets that people wear, backpacks that you have, talks about identity. It is not for the outside thing, it is for the employee wearing it. T-shirts that people give. So it gives people a sense of belonging. That do they feel that you belong to that? That is why some companies have uniforms. Okay, so if you work for companies like Toyota, everyone wears a uniform, or you went to Maruti Suzuki, even the chairman wears the same uniform. Same uniform is worn by everyone, including the chairman. What is the message that they're giving? That we are part of one thing. Whether I'm chairman or a driver in the company, we are a part of the same company and we wear the same uniform. That is a message that you give in a company. Then it acts as a control mechanism, tells people what to do and what not to do. Okay, now one thing that the company, that culture does, is to promote ethics by telling what is right and what is wrong, so that the employee knows what is right or not. So you can have cultures like you have in Infosys and Wipro, which promotes ethical rule making. You could also have a company that is promoting unethical behavior as a culture, who take pride in unethical behavior. I'll not take names, but there are large groups of companies who take pride in being unethical, who are saying that we bend rules, we break rules. That could be the culture of the place. Anything goes, try to get around any rule, that type of culture. So you could have that type of thing too. And we have this last one, which is an important. What happens when two organizations which are very different try to merge? You have two different cultures, and that could become a problem. When you have two organizations merging, you could have a problem, because then you're telling everyone, let's merge as one thing, and that always creates a problem. And I can give you examples where people try to push their own culture. Okay, so there used to be this very beautiful plane called Concorde. I don't know if any of you have heard of a Concorde. A beautiful plane. It had technical flaws, never really did very well, but a very beautiful looking plane. So that was a joint. It was made by the British and the French governments. So it was a government organization. You know that the British and French build planes, right? It's called Airbus. Okay, so similarly, they tried to make this plane called the Concorde between Britain and France. So there was an agreement, and they were. Now, what happened was, the word Concorde in English is spelled Conccord. In French, after the D they add an E. So each side wanted their spelling of Concord, and I'm talking about government of England and government of France, not some small. So every communication that came from France, including drawings, they would spell Concord with an E. And every time the British replied, they would remove the E and Concord. So this went on for many years. There was a British Prime Minister called Edward Heath who thought this was really stupid. And he said, I'm going to put an end to this. The first prototype was being unveiled. And now you have to, you are fighting among yourselves, fine. Now you're going to the market. Now you can't have two different spellings, right? There has to be one spelling. What spelling? So Edward Heath went and he said that every Concord from that will now be manufactured it will be spelled with the letter E. And he said the E in Concord is going to stand for excellence, enterprise, and England. So people at in his home constituency also say, yeah, England is there in Concord. French happy, our spelling came. Problem solved. But I'm telling you that this institutional culture can create such stupidity that you're talking about actually very serious people coming with ridiculous things like this. Now, the other thing is that it becomes a barrier to change. Okay, so especially if you're talking about swift changing things um, like IT, for example, it's not easy for a big company to suddenly change and come up with a new technology. Much easier to, much more easier for a smaller company to do it. Lot of innovation coming in from smaller companies. Lots of it is not coming from the larger companies, coming from the smaller companies, because the smaller companies want to disrupt the market, saying you're a big player, I can't compete with you. I'll come up with a product where you're not there, and I'll make it so big that you will. That's what Facebook did. So now, what happens is that there could be toxicity because some of the culture is really about not changing, about keeping the status quo, about continuing things the way they are, not wanting to do that. So the biggest thing is that the until about 1982, Indian banks did not have computers in them. The computer technology came in 1970. The unions prevented the banks from buying and employing computers because they said it lead to loss of jobs. And then what happened was that when it leads to loss of jobs, we don't want that. And you know what prompted the change? The Indian government decided to give license to private banks. And when that news started happening, they said, let's change before they come. And that is when things started changing. But culture, especially strong cultures, could act like a barrier to change, saying that we will not change. We will continue to do things the old fashioned way. That is the only way to change. So, really about that. And that sometimes becomes a barrier when you're trying to acquire, when you want to acquire that. Now, there is an Indian called Ellen Mittal who makes steel. Have you heard of Ellen? Lakshmi Narayan Mittal is his name. At one time was the richest Indian, and then steel prices went down, but is still among the rich Indians. He owns a company called ArcelorMittal. So Mittal made, what happened was that Mittals made large bulk quantity, low margin steel, and Arcelor made small quantity, high quality, high margin steel. So it made sense for the companies to merge. But Arcelor refused. Arcelor was a French company, they refused. And Mittal mounted what is called a hostile takeover, saying that if you don't, even if you don't like it, I'll buy it from your shareholders and I'll become the owner of the company. That's what he did. And, it is one of the celebrated cases of merger and acquisition. If you are interested in the gory details, read a book called Cold Steel, which is on this merger. Very nice book on how this entire merger and acquisition happened. Now, one thing that Arcelor found very irritating with Ellen Mittal and his son Aditya Mittal, who is now the chairman of the company, was that Ellen Mittal and his son Aditya Mittal would have their lunch at their desk, reading reports, and it was usually a sandwich. Arcelor was a French company. They would have a 5-course meal with wine. One of the assets was the wine closet they had. They had some whatever number of bottles of wine. It was listed as an asset in the company. And they would have an elaborate lunch, and they would never understand why this fellow would want to gobble up a sandwich and continue to work. Why not be French and have a long lunch? Ellen Mittal says, we are working. I don't have time for a 1.5 hour lunch. Difference in culture. You might think that why is that such a big deal? To a culture, it is a big deal. Such differences are what ensures they don't merge, though there are economic and good financial reasons for wanting to do that. That is the problem with culture. Okay, so this sometimes it becomes a barrier to change, and I'll tell you my last 2 stories and then we part. Now, there is a company called Emphasis. Have you heard of a company called Emphasis in Bangalore? Yeah, it was once taken over by an investor called Jerry Rao. Jerry Rao was a well-known investor, has been in large IT roles, so he took over that company. And at that time, Emphasis was a very formal company. People would wear ties and suits and all that. Jerry came to the board meeting wearing shorts and sneakers. So you can imagine the uproar it created in the company. Every all suit wear, and this chairman saying, you know what, I'll come in shorts. One, when you own the company, you can come in any way you want. You can come in shorts, nobody can question. But it created an uproar in the company. Jerry wanted to tell them, Jerry also wears a suit when required. He wanted to tell them, don't get too caught up in dress, get to work. It doesn't matter what you wear. It is what you produce it. That's the message he wanted to give. So culture. So have you heard of a company called Shaw Wallace? Have you ever heard of a company called Shaw Wallace? Shaw Wallace is a Calcutta-based company, liquor company, that got taken over by Vijay Mallya. Okay, eventually got taken over. In middle, it was it was taken over by an investor from the Gulf, Indian investor from the Gulf called Manu Chabria. And this Shaw Wallace was a British company. And though the British had left, the British didn't leave Shaw Wallace. They behaved as if the British were still there. So they would all wear suits in Calcutta heat, and they would only drink tea. And it was a big thing to do that. And Manu Chabria went there and did what was not done in 150 years of Shaw Wallace. You know what was that? Speak in Hindi in Calcutta. He spoke in Hindi to a manager, created an uproar. How can he talk in Hindi? Shaw Wallace, 150 British company. I know companies can be stupid too. This is an example of a stupid culture. Actually, stupid culture. India in Calcutta, the fellow spoke to somebody in Hindi, created an uproar. People left in droves because the culture has changed. It is no longer Shaw Wallace. Of course, it's no longer Shaw Wallace. Loss-making company, which is why he took it over. But the culture was, to give you an example of how stupid the culture was, that at 11 or 11:30, the top management and everybody in the company would meet in their groups over lunch, over tea. There would be tea. And in tea time, the lunch menu was circulated. And inputs, feedback was solicited. So you could make saying that, okay, you are repeating that thing or whatever, So there would be discussion over lunch. So any company that discusses lunch every day is a stupid company and it's going to fail. That's exactly what happened to them. But it ensured that this company didn't want to change. And when Vijay Mallya took over, the brands were shifted out and most of the plants were shifted out of Calcutta. It moved to Bangalore. So I'm telling you that company culture can be a real hindrance. And companies have stupid cultures. They have all these stupid things. That is how culture used to be in India too. RBI director, if you went to meet the RBI governor, you had to wear a suit. And if you didn't wear a suit, there were coats kept outside in the secretary's wing. You wore that. So you would have somebody wearing kurta pajama, wearing a suit on top of that, just because the rules said that. It used to be that stupid. And now you don't have all that. It's a more egalitarian thing. Culture takes a long time to form. So people who wanted the British culture remained like that for many years. All these companies, Shaw Wallace being one of them. And they didn't want to change. For them, what was happening with England was very important. Things changed. So you are now having a corporate culture where things are more equal. Everybody is equal. Meritocracy rules. That is what is. If does somebody know what was the landmark judgment that the Supreme Court gave for the army? The Supreme Court gave a landmark judgment about 2-3 months ago. Somebody aware of that? They allowed women to take up what are called command positions. So women were allowed in the army, but now they're allowed to take up actual army roles in combat. So you could actually become that. What that meant is that they paved the way for a lady to actually become the chief of army staff at a later point. So at some point in time, a very, very good army officer, lady army officer, could actually become the chief of army staff. That rule was struck down after about 50, 60 years of, because the army gave all sorts of reasons. Supreme Court said, rubbish, give them that and the choice is theirs. If they want to take up a combat role, they can take it. So women now can move up and become, from captain, become majors and colonels and major generals. They can actually become that and actually head army units, which was not allowed. Women were always allowed in nursing. They were always allowed in certain arms of the wings of the, they were not allowed in combat. Supreme Court said you should. It took us maybe 70 years to get there. So Supreme Court, they talked about culture. It will change the complex. They said rubbish. No evidence for that. Supreme Court struck it down. They want things to change. And one of the best examples of change has been the Indian Army. In 1950, if you wanted to become an army officer, the condition was that you should have an independent source of income apart from the army salary. That was the condition. Because the army salary, they expected the army men to have a very luxurious lifestyle, which the army salary could not sustain. That was how it was in 1950. So only rich people could join the army. Thankfully, the government saw sense in that and says this stupid thing. And now today you have virtually very egalitarian army. People come in from all parts of India, from all lots of people coming in from rural India, and you have a real very, very egalitarian thing. There was army chief who's retired now called Dalbir Singh. His father was only a sergeant, which is a very low level position. A sergeant's son rose to become the chief of army staff. That's how open the Indian army is. It was a matter of pride for them. They actually publicized that, took pride in saying, you know what, even a person of that rank can actually become the chief of the army staff. And tomorrow you're going to have a lady one day becoming the chief of the army staff. You already have women driving Rafales, you have them piloting Rafales, you have them leading Republic Day parades, you have them doing all that. You will soon see them in combat roles. And I think it's good change, good for them. They're going to bring in a lot of things. And one of the big changes that they want is to bring in technology to the armed forces. They want people with technology background coming into the armed forces and bringing that knowledge into, because the war of the future is going to be fought with technology, the way you're seeing it in Ukraine. No longer would armies go and, like it used to happen in India, they go and fight with each other. That's not going to happen. You're going to sit in the comfort of your home, send a drone and drop the bomb on the other guy. That's the technology of the future. So technology is going to become a big role. So this is about culture. So organization, culture, major thing. So the last thing is that who is responsible for culture? Who is responsible for culture of a place? The top manager, yes. But then, you can in that thing, the culture of your team depends largely on you as a manager. If you want to set a good manager, within organization, you have supportive teams. You have teams where teamwork works very well. That's largely because of the role of the leadership. Okay. So thank you very much. And I will see you on 2 weeks from now. Okay. Now, lots of questions on assignment 1. Okay. Every assignment is going to get reviewed tomorrow by me. So hold your questions till then. If it's still not been resolved, it has not been resolved for a good reason. So I'm going to look at each one of them and see if the marks have been proper. And because some people say I've submitted on time, not submitted. So we're going to look at that, all that. So that's about assignment. Please start looking at assignment 2. And that's a group assignment on cases. So please start talking and discussing that cases in your groups. Okay, so groups that start early have done a better job. because these require some amount of reading of the case. It's usually a case which has about 20 pages, so you might want to read your case, and therefore you will come prepared. We will have presentations. You will be making presentations on the case. Fine. So any other questions? So, but when do you people actually speak? Do you speak at 9:30 or you're quite even at 9:30? You're too tired to even answer that. I said, no, at 9:30 I would have given an answer, or 4:30. I'm sorry, even that answer is too much. Okay, so have a nice day, and hopefully it will not rain when we go back. Okay.
It started here.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.